All right, so I'm gonna be so for real with you guys right now. My eyes can barely stay open. I don't know what is going on, but I'm struggling really hard today with my eyes. So if my eyes look particularly puffy or like they're falling closed, that is what is going on. I don't know what's going on. I think maybe it's allergies. Another thing it could be is I feel a headache coming on. Another thing it could be is I started a new medication that is a beta blocker that can cause fatigue and a bunch of other symptoms. And I might just not be able to keep my eyes open because of that as well. So there's a lot going on right now. But I am really excited to do this video because it is my minimalism anniversary. I have been a minimalist for 3 years now, which is actually wild to say because I feel like it has been part of my life for a lot longer, but it has only been 3 years. Time flies. I feel like every year I've gone through my clothes, I've continued going through my stuff. I've also been doing a lot more digital minimalism recently. And so I wanted to do a video about what I have learned from 3 years of being a minimalist. So let's get into these lessons. Okay, so the first lesson I have learned is how much digital clutter I have accumulated my whole life. I did not realize how quickly digital clutter accumulates because physical clutter, you can see it and there is a end to the amount of storage you have. Like it's a lot easier to see the physical clutter and then get rid of that in your life. And you go through periods of like when you're growing up, obviously you go through toys or clothing, you outgrow them and then, you know, you get rid of them in different stages of life. You need different things, but like digital clutter, like the photos you keep, the notes that you accumulate, the emails that you just never delete, because it's so hidden within our phones or our devices, I feel like that accumulates so much faster. But I think I've realized how much it does affect my mental health to see the digital clutter, to have more apps on my phone. And I think I want to do a couple more videos on minimalism to kind of celebrate this anniversary. And so I'm going to go over, I think at some point, the apps that I do have on my phone right now because I have continued to kind of decrease them. I want to talk about like how I organize my phone a little bit more and stuff. So I've made a lot of changes recently. And so, yeah, I think that just realizing how quickly that accumulates. So like now monthly I go through my photos and I'll try to delete because it's so much easier to go through monthly than yearly or even more. It just gets out of control. It snowballs very quickly, the digital accumulation and the digital clutter. Another big lesson is that like we are not perfect. Even as minimalists, we might have a junk drawer or, you know, little areas where things get out of control quickly, and that's okay. Life happens. This is a mindset. This is a lifestyle. You don't have to be so rigid that you're not enjoying life. That's not what minimalism is. You want to enjoy life and things happen and that's okay. The goal is not to be perfect. It's just trying to live intentionally each day to use what we need and not more than we need. And that's just the goal. I think another thing I've learned is how much clutter affects those around me. Like the more I've gotten out from under it and the more work I've done on my own clutter, the more I see how much it impacts other people around me. And it's so hard because like you want to share with other people how much it's impacted your life and the positive benefits that you've gotten from it. But a lot of people just don't want to hear it because it is really hard to declutter your life. It is a lot of work and it's life-changing, but to get there, you do have to put in the initial work. And so, yeah, that's just really tough. I think another lesson I've learned is it's just a constant journey of reorganizing and adjusting and optimizing. Like after you do the first big clean out, after that, it's just kind of, yeah, this constant journey of adjusting. So I've also realized how connected organizing is to my autism as a stress reliever. So I don't know what it's called when your mind remembers like where everything is. I've read a lot about this and researched this with autism, but like I have a mental map of my room. I know where everything is in my room. So if somebody picks up something and places it back down and it's in the wrong spot, I've actually read that as an autistic mind, your mind has to redo that map And it's stressful. Like, it is stressful to have things not put where they need to be. So a big way that I make sure that I'm not stressed is I make sure like everything in my room has its place and it's in that place. And then if I need something, I know exactly where it is. So I think like, especially with autism, it's just exhausting. If you have too much stuff, then your mind map is humongous. Or if you're in an environment where you're trying to create a mind map, but it's super cluttered, then that overwhelms your brain because it's just too much stimuli, it's too much input, and it has nowhere to go, or it's an overwhelming amount of new information. I also do believe the Marie Kondo method, where she believes that like each item, like this hematite wand that I use for body aches and pains, so I will give myself like a hand massage or a foot massage. Anyway, each item has a soul, and I want to honor my items and their souls. And so I want to use everything I own, whether that is using it physically every day, or if it is something that has really sentimental value, I try to like pick up stuff in my room and admire it. And so that was like a huge mindset shift for me of how I looked at all the things in my room. And I really wanted to make sure that they're always being used and they're not like just alone in a corner for years collecting dust and they're not being loved. I just don't want it to take up physical and mental space if I'm not using it. I'm just really big on my boundaries, and I'm not okay with that anymore, of something taking up space and me not loving it or using it. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned is moderation with everything, including moderation. So if you are too strict or rigid, which I have been known to do, right? Because I have autism, and being really strict and rigid to the point of actually harming myself, like being like, you have to be so disciplined that you do this one habit every single day, even if it's bad for you to do it that day, you have to do it. No, that is something that I am leaving in my past, and I am not taking it with me into my future. And so moderation in everything, including moderation. So for minimalism, this means like not stressing myself out if I'm like, oh, you know, like I really want to purchase this thing, but then all the thoughts come in of like, well, you're a minimalist, so you shouldn't purchase it. I'll be like, no, if I really want this thing and I know I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna buy this thing, and that's fine. And then I think just reminding yourself like, I do periodically either organize my room or rearrange my room or clean out my room. I kind of tend to do that. I do it whenever I'm interested in doing it, so I don't force myself to do it, but maybe like once a year, especially going through my clothes and stuff, making sure I love everything, I use everything. And that also helps to do like, especially if you go through your clothes and do like a closet clean out, you remember stuff. Maybe something fell to the back of your closet or the back of your drawer and you actually haven't used it for the last year, but maybe you would if you remembered it. And so a big way to do that is to do those touching, because Marie Kondo method is to touch everything, to hold each item that you own and say, yeah, does this item spark joy? But like, do I use this item? Is this something that brings me value or joy? And I think that that is really important as a minimalist, to do that a lot, but at least periodically, and making sure that you are using things in your space. That is something that makes me so happy, is to actively be using things or find a use. Say for example, there's an item that I haven't been using that's been weighing on my mind of like, oh, I have this thing, I'm wondering like, should I just donate it or get rid of it because I'm not using it? And then I find an active use in my life for it. That is something that makes me like incredibly happy. So I think the moderation thing is really important, because you want to make sure you're not stressing yourself out with these principles, right? Minimalism is a tool for you to use for yourself and your benefit, not to your detriment, not to stress yourself out in your life. So I think making sure it works for you and it doesn't rule you, or you're working, you know, for the minimalism principles. No, like this is a tool for you to use however it best benefits your life, and you can use it in whatever way you want. Like there is no one way to do minimalism. I don't know why I'm getting so red. I do have my Himalayan salt lamp on, so I do have a little bit of a red light from, there you go. I look less red then. A little bit of glow from my Himalayan salt lamp. So Anyway, these are some lessons I've learned from 3 years as a minimalist. Like I said, it feels so much longer. I've gone through so many minimalism cleanouts on this channel. I've talked to you all about my journey with minimalism as I've gone. And so these are just kind of, in looking back in the last 3 years, some of the bigger lessons that I've learned. But in exploring this journey more, I would like to do some additional videos on minimalism, the things I've learned. I'd like to do a minimalism tour, room tour. I think since we moved in, I've not done like a final tour of this room. And that's the thing, right? This room is constantly changing. I'm constantly adapting, finding new ways to use things and utilize things to the best of everyone's ability or whatever. But I think that it would be fun to just show it in its current form now, and maybe in another year, do another room tour. And like I said, I would love to do a little bit more on digital minimalism. I had a whole series going at one point, and I still have additional video ideas for that series. So if you have any questions about minimalism or any topics about minimalism that you'd like me to talk about more, please drop them in the comments or message me on social media or however you feel comfortable contacting me, because this is a topic I'm super interested in. I think a lot of people don't talk about this topic because it is a little nerve-wracking to put your lifestyles out there. And yeah, everybody's been super nice, but it's a little vulnerable, you know, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're not a minimalist if you have this or that or whatever, then you're not a minimalist. But minimalism, like, is so personal to each person. And so I think that, like, as long as, again, it's benefiting your life and you are trying to live intentionally and use the things that you own and live as minimally as you can, then you're a minimalist. And so, yeah, I'm just so excited to keep talking about this topic that makes me really passionate, and I think that other people are very interested in this too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on minimalism and what your thoughts were on some of these things I've learned. What have you learned from minimalism, etc., etc. So please comment below whatever your thoughts are, and I will see you in the next video, my friends. I'm gonna go take a nap and rest these tired eyes. Talk soon. Bye.